Wait.
Hey everyone, we are live on YouTube and this is Silence Siddharth. We run the Indian Dream podcast. We have done more than 75 episodes of that podcast to date. And this is the first time we're doing a YouTube live. So, what is the Indian Dream? Basically, we are a podcast that dives deep into entrepreneurship. We have done topics such as hemp, such as cloud kitchens, literally everything that you can think about. And we have interviewed more than 75 founders. We also do newsletters, we do a lot of stuff and we thought that hey, we are missing out on the entire YouTube crowd. Let's start doing something on YouTube and let's make it big. So we're hoping to do as much YouTube as possible. And in this first episode, we're hoping to go deep into the idea of private communities. So private communities are a really hot commodity right now, because in the US there have been some really big acquisitions of private communities where a SaaS company has bought a private community because the members of that community are so loyal and because the members of that community will buy the SaaS product. So let's start it off by answering the question, what is a private community and why are they becoming so big in India right now? Siddharth?
Yeah. In order to understand why private communities are becoming big, I think we need to understand the fact that communities have always existed, right? Traditionally, for our parents, it was either religious sort of communities that they were part of, or other social communities basis location or the trade that they were in, and they were part of those, right? But as sort of internet came into the picture, as things evolved, a lot of these communities moved online, right? And originally, I think these were forums in different kinds of communities, which were sort of free online. But as more and more people started getting onto the internet, these started becoming very noisy, right? Like if you're part of a bunch of Facebook groups or communities, I'm part of those, right? If it's free, there's going to be like everybody and anybody joining out of FOMO, and the value from the community is fairly low. So the next evolution of that is private communities, primarily online. I think most of the action that we're seeing is online private communities, but I think there's some offline action also where there's an upgrade to the different kinds of private communities that existed. So we're seeing this trend where people are figuring out different niches, right? Different interest areas, different hobbies, different sort of knowledge that you're seeking for, and trying to band together a group of people, and making that a private community. So it's paid. You need to sort of pay money to actually become a part of that community, and then you get a bunch of value in terms of content and the ability to network and other kinds of things, right? So to summarize, I think the need has always existed. We are social animals and we like to be part of communities. That's why alumni bodies exist. That's why city level sort of bodies exist and stuff like that. How can internet change that? That's really the trend that we are seeing right now.
And that's a really good point, Siddharth. And I think that's why you see that there are many different types of these private communities. And like you said, there are some offline, right? So we spoke to the founder of this one private community called Quorum, which is based in Delhi and it's coming to Bombay and it's going all across India as well. And basically, Quorum is a modern interpretation of what a gymkhana should be. Because, like most gymkhanas in most cities, at least in Bombay, have completely stopped their membership. It's impossible to get a membership in a gymkhana nowadays. So Quorum is like kind of a very modern take on a gymkhana. In Bombay, there's also another place called Soho House, which started in New York. Now they have like 34 locations across India. And so like these are these like very physical locations. But like you
Yeah.
mentioned that there are also these internet-based private communities.
Sahil, before
And
you go there, there's an interesting anecdote that Vivek, who we spoke to, who's the co-founder of Quorum, he said
yeah,
about gymkhanas, right? He said these guys are now focused on figuring out how to keep people out of the clubs, right? Like they're so high walled and only the elites have access to it. Where the younger generation, who's sort of who's doing different kinds of professional work and have the means to be part of these clubs, are saying that why am I not allowed into these places? I think that was the core need where they started Quorum. And for people who don't know what Quorum is, it's basically a club of sorts, not the traditional sort of club that you go for like dance and stuff, but a club where there's wellness, there's sort of a gym, there is co-working spaces. They curate content in terms of art and different exhibitions and different shows and all of that. And they also have a place where you can have good food, and they have a bar and stuff like that. So all of this behind a member only thing. So you need to pay to become a member and then access these services.
Yeah. I'm also part of several private communities, and one of them is like a very work-centric private community called Ascent Foundation, where you become a member and then you get access to a lot of learning and development as an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is a very, as I say, it's a very lonely journey, and this foundation, it puts you in a group of other entrepreneurs, of maybe like 10, 12 other entrepreneurs who are going through that same journey as you. And so being part of this private community, you end up learning a lot. And I ended up learning a lot when I was part of Ascent. I'm still a part of Ascent. It's been 2, 3 years and I love it. There's this other private community for work that has come up in the last year. It's called Leap Club. And we also interviewed the founder of Leap Club. And Leap Club started just last year. It started right before the pandemic started. And it was supposed to be a physical space private community again. And they had to completely trash those plans because they started, I think, in Feb or March. And then obviously the pandemic started in March in India, and they had to completely trash those plans. And now it is a purely of online play where they've built an app, they built an ecosystem so that a bunch of, and so Leap Club, let me explain what it is. It is basically a women's only networking organization, not just networking, it's also learning and development, right? And it's women only. And the reason they chose that, if now correct me if I'm wrong, Siddharth, was because they saw that there was a need amongst women, that they don't have as many networking opportunities as men. They don't have as many personal development opportunities as men. And so they wanted to kind of bridge that gap. And they wanted to make a private community of women who help each other and help each other get to the next level of their career. So it's not just entrepreneurs, it's also professional working women. Do you want to add something?
No, I mean, my wife uses it, and I absolutely love what they've created. There's so much you can actually learn from and connect with different people and stuff like that. And as you said, I think they saw an opportunity in the women's segment, but similar opportunities exist niches, right? And we're going to talk about some of those in this video.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You need to identify that niche and you need to go for it. But yeah, there are a lot of these kind of opportunities that exist. There are many private investment communities. There are many private, what else am I missing? Social good communities like Rotary International, like Lions Club. There are many of these kind of things that exist in different niches. Okay, yeah. So one thing that we did, because we spoke to all these entrepreneurs, we tried to figure out what is the process of building out a private community. Do you want to take up step number one, or should I, Siddharth? What do you think?
Before we do that, I think one interesting sort of communities that are now getting a lot of focus is communities around brands, right? Harley Davidson is a prime example of it, where there's a big community of Harley lovers, or I don't know what it's called. Same thing for Royal Enfield. I think the bikers have been able to do it, but a lot of other brands are realizing the power of building such a community. So more people are trying to attempt this, and you'll see more action in those communities as well. These are not private communities in the sense that you have to pay to become a member, but you need to, use their products or buy their products and stuff like that.
Dude, literally look at any pitch deck of any startup these days, and they'll be like, yeah, man, we want to have a community focused, community driven purchasing decision. Yeah. And just like everybody's saying that, but building a community is really hard work. And that's what we're going to get into now, is how do you build a community? So this is something that I thought about for a long time. How do you go about and build a community? And we spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs about this. We did a lot of reading about this as well. And we came to the conclusion that the first step in building a community, if that's what you're going to do, if that's what you want to do, is you need to define the value of that community. Why does that community exist? What is your community's purpose? Is your community there for learning? So Ascent is purely for learning. It's not meant for networking, like other communities like DNI, which is there for networking. So is it there for learning? Is it there for social networking? Is it there to build your brand? Is it there because you have an interest? So for example, if I have an interest in rock climbing, I can build a private community of rock climbers who are able to climb at a certain grade. Is it there for action, right? So you can have a private community of people who are there to do some kind of action, like let's say for political action, like they want to do some kind of political action. Is it a private community for a place? I can build a private community for my neighborhood. I live in a part of Bombay called Juhu. I can build a private community of people from Juhu who are looking to experience something in that neighborhood. Or it can be for a practice or a profession, right? So if you're a lawyer, you have a community for that. If you're a CA, there's a community for that. And there are communities for many different types of profession. And I think choosing that purpose, making sure that the purpose is really rock solid, is probably the most important step that you can take in building that community. Siddharth and I, as we speak, are trying to build a community. We're trying to build a community for profitable entrepreneurship, right? And we're telling people that, okay, our goal is to enable entrepreneurs to build profitable businesses. And I think that is a pretty rock solid purpose. But
That's what we think.
that's what we think. It could be wrong, but if your purpose is very vague, like if your purpose is just like I want to hang out, there's so many other places that you can go to hang out. Why will
Yeah.
somebody come to your place to hang out?
If it,
Right?
I think it boils down, when you were speaking, I think it boils down to two things, right? Is it a community for learning something, or is it a community for entertainment? Right? I think these are the two broad buckets. There could be a combination. So I think a rock climbing community could be a combination of like, I want to learn rock climbing, but it's a form of entertainment, right? Like it's I go there and I have fun and it's a stress buster, whatnot, right? So I think these are the two broad categories, but obviously you have to go deeper within that. For us, when we talk about build a community of profitable entrepreneurs, I think the focus is more around learning, right? How can we enable more entrepreneurs? How can collaboration happen between entrepreneurs? How can we present trends? Like one of the things that we're doing right now is just presenting this trend of private communities. How can we present more such trends for people to identify where the opportunities are and stuff like that? So you really need to nail down that purpose before you move to the next step. I think that is by far one of the hardest things, is can you nail down a purpose that is not too broad, but also not significantly niche where it's just you who's interested in that topic, right?
Yeah. So what's the next step, Siddharth?
Yeah. Choosing is not an offline community aspect. Choosing is not an offline community where you have to figure out a place and go build the infrastructure and all of that, but we're going to focus more on the online
I just want to take a
community
second
aspect.
there on the offline part, because that's what Quorum did.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, he spent a considerable amount of capital building that offline facility. If you're going to build offline, you're going to spend a lot of money, and you're going to be taking a significant amount of risk. But at the same time, I think if you build an impressive offline facility, people are impressed and people will come there. Online
Yeah.
communities, because they're so easy to build, anybody can build it, and you will have a lot of competition. Uh,
Yeah, the barrier to entry in offline communities is way higher, both in terms of investment and getting the word out, and riding that initial period of like finding the right target market. Because here's the thing with offline communities: when you build a club in Gurgaon, you're limited to people who are living in the 5-10 kilometer radius, right? People from Noida are not going to come and join, become a part of that club. People from Bombay are not going to become a part of that club, right? That's the benefit of an online community. But as Sahil said, anybody and everybody can start an online community, right? So you need to be on point with your value and everything that you do with an online community to actually make it big there.
all right. So online communities, what are the
Yeah.
options?
So now I think what's happened, because even in the West, I think that a bunch of people realized over the last couple of years on how important it is to build communities and how many more people are trying to attempt to build communities. There have been various platforms that have been funded and trying to, startups that are trying to build community platforms. There's Tribe and Circle that are just pure play community platforms that can help, get your community on one place to interact on a common topic that you've defined. Then there's Discord, Slack. I think these are well known. Discord is probably more Gen Z. Slack is more work oriented or professional community
Yeah.
oriented.
But Discord, there's some fantastic communities being built on Discord. Discord is specifically meant for community building.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
free, completely free.
yeah. And I mean, then there's Facebook groups, while a lot of us think Facebook has become irrelevant, people don't really go there for social networking or social media or whatnot. The Facebook groups tend to be a strong sort of pull for a lot of people to come to Facebook and be actively sort of contribute and interact on those communities. I don't know if in the near future all of these will move to like a tribe or a circle or whatnot, but so far I think Facebook groups are pretty solid. And then there's obviously the OG, the Reddit, which is where the whole sort of community movement started back in the day. You go to Reddit and you can find your weirdest interests will probably have a community already existing on Reddit, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's free to be a part of Reddit, and it's more information sharing, content sharing. It's less high touch, so it's low touch technically. But yeah, that's the OG for community
I'm
platforms.
a part of at least 10 Reddit communities about dogs.
Yeah.
I
uh,
love, yeah.
as I said, I mean, anything that you're interested in, and it could be as it could be specific, like indie dogs, right? Like I know, Sahil, you have an indie dog. um, they'll probably have a community for that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
um, then I
And
mean, there's WhatsApp. I don't think it's a great community platform, but it might be a good place to start off at least. When you
that's what
can,
they've done.
yeah, that's what we've done. I mean, we have like newsletter of WhatsApp newsletter, which is about 1,500 people, but we also have like an open group where people interact with each other, which is about 300, 400 people now, about 200, 250 people actually, because it's just one group. Yeah, it's not a great place because there's no way to search for previous content, and no way to segregate content and stuff like that, but it's a good starting point.
Okay.
Once you figure this out, the most important thing where people sort of stutter is attracting the initial set of members. Sahil, do you want to throw some light onto how do you do that?
Yeah. The thing is, it's not a problem for me because I'm so good looking. But I personally see about 4 different ways that you can attract your members, right? And attracting your initial set is the most important. The 4 ways that I see is number one is content creator led community building, where you just build a lot of content. Number two is scarcity led community building, where you limit the amount of people who are able to enter your community for whatever reason, and that will attract a lot of other people. Number three is physical space-led community building, like Quorum, and number four is course, like a cohort-based course-led community building. I'll just very briefly touch upon all of them. Content creator-led community building, I think that's probably what's the most popular right now, and that's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where you put out a lot of content, a lot of free content, a lot of educational content. I guess it would be entertainment as well, and that gets people to join your community, and that because then people have a common interest and people
Yeah.
have a common thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And every week, whenever you post some piece of information, they're going to talk about that, hopefully. So
Yeah.
that's number one. Now, the scarcity one, that's probably the most interesting
just
one.
just before you go there, I think, as you said, it could be entertainment driven also. I know Tanmay Bhatt has
Hmm.
this whole community of like people who are on YouTube with him. I forget the name of the community.
The
Yeah.
Bhattians.
No, yeah. But so it could be entertainment driven also, but he's played the same game, content led. So he's put out a lot of content that people sort of relate to, and hence, yeah, the
Yeah.
bot army. It's called the bot army.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, secondly, is scarcity-led community building, which is very interesting, and that's what Leap Club did, and that's what a lot of other people do. Where you get an initial set of people. So Leap Club got an initial set of about 30 to 50 people who are very who were seen in the eyes of others as being super high up in their careers or like really really impressive women, right? And then people were like, oh my god, these really impressive people joined Leap Club. There must be something special about it. I have to join this Leap Club as well. But then the thing is, Leap Club puts you in a waiting list, and it's been a year, and now their waiting list, as per the founder Ragini, is around 8,000 or 10,000 people. It's a massive waiting list. So like people really want to get in, but they can't, and that's
Yeah.
what creates that FOMO. There are
Apart from
many.
creating FOMO though, Sahil, I think what Ragini did really well, or Leap Club did really well, is when you're building that initial community, you need to make sure that people who have a certain sort of characteristics are becoming a part of that
Yeah.
community, right? Like they're looking to get the same kind of things that the
Yeah.
club offers, and they can contribute to the community in some way or form.
Yeah.
So curating that, first 500,000, 2,000 people is extremely important, because that can make or break your community.
Yeah.
So they basically, I won't call it an interview, but they talk to every single person who gets into the community before they decide if they should get in or not, right? So that's a
Yeah.
sound strategy also.
Yeah.
High effort, but a great way to do it.
Yeah. Then physical space led. Yeah, we spoke about quorum course led. This is an interesting one again, and this is I'll give an example of Amit Verma. Amit Verma is a very famous podcaster, and he had a course called the art of clear writing.
The
Right?
podcast, by the way, is called The Seen and Unseen.
The seen and the unseen. It's a
Yeah.
very anyway, and then from that course, he funneled everybody into a community of people. So Amit Verma doesn't, he's not trying to make money out of this community. He's just doing it because he enjoys it. And there are many WhatsApp groups of people, and there are Google group threads as well. And there's also a Reddit for the art of clear writing. And it's a massive community now of amazing writers. I've met people on that community that I never thought I would ever meet in my life. So yeah, that's another way that you can build a community. Okay, provide value to your community. What kind of value do you think
This,
we
yeah,
should be providing?
this is really your core offering, right? Like this is the product that you're technically offering. The most obvious one is obviously the networking aspect of it. You get to meet like-minded people, but people are not going to pay you just for that, right? So in order to actually get people to pay, you need to give things beyond that, and that could be content. It could be exclusive content, which can be, podcasts or newsletters or whatnot. There, one of the things that we've spoken about, we think the business news in India is broken, and we'll do a separate video on that. But what if you could give a no bullshit news for people on topics that they're interested in, right in their inbox or wherever they want it, right?
I hope YouTube doesn't monetize us for the word you just used. YouTube is very finicky. Anyway,
Okay.
uh, we live and we
First
learn.
time doing
It's
it,
not
so
like we make any money from this. So yeah.
yeah. Then there could be exclusive events where you get a lot of these people together in events and do interesting stuff there. There could be coaching, there could be executive coaching and stuff like that. There could also be community specific deals, right? Hear me out on this. If you have a community of, similar people, and there's a brand or a product that wants to advertise to them or that wants to reach to them, what you can do is curate a specific deal, a special deal, which says that people in this community are going to get this product or service for 50% discount or 60% discount or 20% discount or whatnot, right? So specific deals for the community is another value add. More often than not, you will see that communities tend to do a combination of different things. So it'll be a bit of networking, it'll be a bit of content, it'll be a bit of this, it'll be a bit of that. And you need to figure out, basis your audience, what are they looking for. One
Yeah.
of the good things about a community is you can literally talk to these people and figure out what they're looking for, and then go out and develop those kinds of products and services. I think Leap Club does this really well. We keep referring to Leap because we've spoken to the founder, and we know what they've done is they have a really solid feedback system in place, right? So after every experiment that they do in terms of events and workshops and stuff like that, they tend to get feedback on, okay, did you like it? Do you need more of this? What else do you need? And stuff like that. And that can influence, the product and services that you build within that community.
And then lastly, I think once you've built these products, once you've done all this stuff, you need to grow that community. And there are many different ways you can grow it. I think the best way, in my opinion, is to have a referral program of some sort. There are many apps online that you can use as a referral program. And that's the way some of the biggest communities on the internet have grown. Having a referral program, you can have contests. That's another a great way to do it. You can do gamification, right? Where you give some points or something like that, and then people get really invested in all those points. And if those points don't mean anything, people get really into it. So I think gamification is another way to do it. But yeah, if you're not, once you figure out the model, once you figure out the value that you're giving, then you just
Yeah.
need to put the pedal to the metal and just grow that community. Okay.
Just a word of caution there. There's some communities that are better suited to be small, so you don't
Yeah.
want to grow too aggressively. Somebody that I know runs a community for personal investing and stuff like that. That community shouldn't go beyond a certain size, otherwise there's too much noise, and the whole part about communities is the signal that they provide.
Okay, so that we've been doing this for 25 minutes now. We should probably finish it off. I think we have spoken about a lot of important stuff, and now I think we should focus on how somebody can build their own community. Meaning, like, what are the ideas there, and what do we think is going to happen in this space? So, Siddharth, what do you think is going to happen in this space, and what are the opportunities that people have to build a community in India right now?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this briefly. I think a lot of these internet businesses, think direct to consumer companies, think these SaaS businesses are going to invest heavily into building an engaged online and offline community, online or offline community, right? To give you an example, back in the day, salesforce.com 2011 had a very strong community of people who were helping each other just figure out the platform, right? Salesforce is a SaaS platform which is can be fairly complicated just basis the number of things that they do, but their community was there to help each other develop more products on that. Recently we've seen the likes of HubSpot, another huge SaaS company in the US, actually buying out the Hustle, which was a private community, which is a community of entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
business and tech nerds. Zapier buying MakerPad and stuff like that. So we'll see a more and more of these companies investing in either acquiring some of these communities or building their own communities, right?
So,
So
so
there's an
what?
opportunity right there.
Yeah. So what I'd do is I'd find like some of these niches where people are building right now, but there's no community, right? So, for example, there's a bunch of stuff happening in the plant-based food space right now in India, and there's a lot of vegan activism happening. There's a lot of that kind of stuff happening. I'm sure there are already communities there. Like, I haven't looked into this, but if I could go back in time, I would start a community based on plant-based food, something about maybe vegan activism or something like that, and then just send an email to these guys, being like, "Hey man, like, you guys want to sell your patties, your vegan patties? You guys
Yeah.
want to sell all this stuff? Why not just buy out my community? You can send emails every day to my 20,000 members, and yeah, you'll. This is a new distribution channel for you.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic way to make money at the end of this.
Yeah. The word of caution again there is a lot of times people become part of these private communities so that they don't want any bias, right? Like they
Yeah.
want unbiased stuff, right? So you need to tread a very thin line where you can't be advertising explicitly to these people. So it's a you can figure it out, but just a word of caution there.
Yeah.
On the other thing, I think, as you said, content creators. Tanmay Bhatt's The Bot Army is one of the examples. I think more and more of that's going to happen. And even on the learning and development piece, there's a guy in the US who runs a community of product managers, right? Lenny Richiski started out with a newsletter, now has a paid community, now does job boards and stuff like that, also does cohort based courses. So he teaches online courses and stuff like that. So people are going to start with that, build a community, and then whatever the community wants, they're just going to develop those products and services,
Yeah.
right? So that's going to happen a lot more in the
Yeah.
coming years.
I think another thing that's really important is managing a community is extremely difficult. It is, we manage our community, which is not that big, and it is hard work. I can't imagine a founder of some SaaS company wants to manage a community. So there's going to be a lot more jobs around becoming a community manager, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they still have not figured out what the CV for a community manager is. So
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a really interesting place that people can put their efforts towards getting better as a community manager and then selling yourself as a community manager.
I
All right,
mean, one
Siddharth.
of the opportunities there, one of the opportunities, as you rightly said, right, this field is picking up and this role is picking up is creating content around community management. And
Yeah.
that could be a content website on its own, but also a job board which says that, hey,
I recently joined a Slack group of community managers.
there, right
So
there.
so it
Yeah,
exists, but
yeah,
maybe there's a thing specific for India though.
yeah.
So that could be
That's
an
so
opportunity.
meta, a community of community managers.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, we discuss a lot more of this in detail on our newsletter. Link to that is in the show notes. We spoke to two people to understand the world of private communities. The link to those podcasts are also in the newsletter, or also on the show notes. So check that out.
On YouTube, it's called the description, not show notes. You need to move away from your podcast mindset.
Yeah. So as Sahil said, one of our first YouTube videos, I'm gonna get the hang of it eventually. I'm gonna figure out how to not sweat while doing these YouTube videos.
And how not to swear. And also, we need to make it shorter next time. This is
Yeah.
almost 30 minutes, I think. So apologies for the really long video. But we're going to try to keep it. We started this video thinking like, let's aim for 10-15 minutes. It ended up being 30 minutes.
I think as podcasters, you get into the habit of just like blabbering. I think that's what
Yeah.
we've done, some part of it. But we'll get better. Drop your comments. That's
If
what
you
it's
have
called,
any,
right?
if anybody listens to this, please drop a comment.
If
Uh,
you've come till here, definitely drop a comment on what could we do better. Hit
yeah.
like, share, subscribe. I figured that out by watching so many YouTube videos that you have to set this at the end of every YouTube video. So click like, share, subscribe.
And also hit that notification button so that you get
Wow.
notified about our new videos. I
I
watch way too much YouTube.
I'm
Okay,
going I'm going
let's end
to
it.
I'm going to LinkedIn and saying I'm a YouTuber now. This was my goal in life to say that, like,